Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish. We're talking about stress today because this whole week, again, we're talking about what puts us under the influence of something. And I'm convinced that most of us don't understand what influences us. We have belief systems that are built on what? From influence. We have relationships that happen because of what? Influence. And we have the ability to influence people, and they have the ability to influence us. And we also, the media does it. We've talked about all kinds of stuff all through the week. Today I'm going to talk about stress, because stress is not just one hormone. There's several of hormones that come in and seem to kind of have their way with us, and we don't even realize it. So I want to talk about it because we're all under the influence of stress, whether we know it or not, whether we think we are or we think we're not. I've had people say before, I'm not stressed. I'm not under any kind of stress. And I have to say to that, and this sounds really harsh, but it's true. You're either ignorant or you're lying. Because the fact of the matter is, everyday life produces some kind of stress. It just does. And nobody is impervious. Nobody can walk around and say, it's just not touching me. Because we're all touched by it. We are all touched by it. It's your body's reaction to a challenge or demand. That's it. We get it physically, we get it emotionally, we get it mentally, even spiritually, we can be affected by stress. So stress is helpful, right? If we're trying to avoid lions and tigers and bears, oh my, isn't it? Because honestly, if you meet a lion or a tiger or a bear, you want cortisol and adrenaline to kick in and drag your butt out of there fast. It's helpful to lift a car off of someone, or maybe, you've got to do something, get out of town really fast. Adrenaline allows us to do that. But when we're living off of adrenaline, and adrenaline is a lifestyle, we are putting our bodies under such tremendous stress, to the point that it even affects our decision making. Did you know that? It's fascinating. So let's talk about, there's 3 stress hormones, 3 of them. There's a lot of them, but these are the major ones. The first one is adrenaline. It's also known as epinephrine. And that's your fight or flight. It's the immediate thing. It's like, lift the car, and it just comes for a minute that gives you superhuman strength. It's absolutely can do that. So this is something that, we need for when we need it, for when we have to fight off a bear or run for our lives. Very useful for those kind of things. Not so useful on a daily basis. There's cortisol. Now, this is the amygdala's favorite, because the amygdala pushes on cortisol and says, oh, everything's terrible and there's too much risk here and I'm scared to death and you should be too, and let's overreact, shall we? Amygdala loves to do that. Poke, 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 push the button. Let's make her lose her top. Let's make her scream at her kids or scream at her husband or scream at the phone or scream at the cars in front of her, whatever. That's the amygdala telling you, oh, everything's out of control. Let's throw down the cortisol. Now, there's good parts of cortisol. We need that. We need to have cortisol in balance. It's what helps us get up in the morning. Cortisol helps us to keep our lives. It just helps to juice us, right? But when it's bad, it suppresses the immune system. It can have cardiovascular effects. It can cause your blood pressure to go up. It can even be a cause of obesity. This is where weight loss resistance comes in with and I've seen this with clients who are just absolutely completely stressed out and unable to manage their own stress. And everything that they do isn't enough because they aren't losing the weight and they're just really frustrated. I get that. Everything plays into it. That's why it's never just one thing. It's never, you always hear, well, you got to count calories, or, less calories in, more exercise out, or some nonsense like that. It couldn't be further from the truth, because your body, food is information. There's a whole chemistry situation going on inside of you, and you react differently to everything. And those hormones and stress hormones, the ones that we're talking about, those all affect weight loss, how you cope with things, everything. So what hormones are is information and messengers for your body. This is how you react. We know about the sex hormones, of course. This is what regulates how we do menopause and how we do perimenopause and how we do our periods, for heaven's sakes. It's how everything moves. And they're all wrapped up in all of this is a circadian rhythm. It's fascinating how the body works. But we need to look at all of these. And then the third one, of course, I haven't mentioned that, is the norepinephrine. And that's your backup system for adrenaline. It does the same thing that adrenaline does, but if you're really burnt out, it just backs up and says, but it takes a minute longer than adrenaline. Adrenaline's immediate like that. But if you're fried and all of a sudden you're just like, oh man, I got to go do this. You can't. And then you're just like really pushing at it. All of a sudden, that's when norepinephrine kicks in and gets you going. So think about stress. Have you ever heard of the term stress eating? Anyone ever participate in stress eating? Anyone? Come on. Pinkies up if you stress eating. Come on. I'm going to wait. I'm here. Yeah, that's exactly right. Sarah says, if I can't avoid the stressor, then my only option is to adjust my reaction to it. That's where mindfulness plays in. And we're going to be talking about that, because this is how we get to the place of handling stress, because stress is going to happen. We just have to, there we go. Amy's there. There we go. Martha, Lynn, Helen, all of us, Amber. I mean, we've all done that. How often have you just said, why did I just do that? Well, we look for mechanisms and coping skills for the stress that we're under, whether it's an emotional stress, physical, whatever the stress is, we have to figure out a response mechanism to it. So if we are using food as our drug of choice, which that's what a lot of us do, right? I mean, my pinkies are up. This is the place that we go to. This is the thing that we do. But we understand that drug abuse, gambling, shopping, hello, Amazon, my friend, drinking excessively, anxiety attacks, high blood pressure, diabetes, all of this is connected directly with the inability to handle stress. And I shouldn't say the inability, I'm going to say the lack of education on how to handle stress, because we're going to be talking about what you can do. Stress does not have to take us down like this. And when we understand all of the capacity that stress has to lead us into a dark place, because depression is a part of this too, then we can change it up. And stress is a part of life. It's routine. We're going to get it daily in our lives. I mean, anybody ever deal with a kid that just drove you nuts and made you stressed out? Of course. Anybody ever done that with your spouse or your partner? Or you just, I had a discussion this morning that was a little stressful, not going to lie, a little stressful, but, I figured out a way to work it out and asked Jenny. I just threw it on Jenny. So you handle him. You do it, Jenny. But we have ways of bucking all of this, because, if stress is going to make us is it going to affect our decision making, and you know how it does? Yes, you do. And I'm so grateful for those broad shoulders. Let me just tell you something, Jenny, if it's you have no idea. But this is what we do. Our amygdala plays into all this stress stuff. It really does, because it wants you to play it safe rather than sound, right? Yeah, your decision making. So we'll do the safer thing. And you know what the safer thing is? Playing to our audiences of all these imaginary people who we think we need to please. That is avoiding stress. So it's safe, but it's not sound, right? Right? Isn't that the truth? And there's a lot of emotion that's all tied up in that. And there's a lot of pre-thought assumptions, right? This is it. This is it. So when we understand that, then we can make a decision that says, okay, I see this stress. I know what it's doing to me. I know what my amygdala is doing to me. So now what I can do is unplug from the situation. You've heard me say this before, but when you do understand, you're taking out the energy, you're removing all the factors that it's like unplugging a machine, right? If I went and took my lamp, unplugged my lamp right now, there would be no electricity illuminating that light. It's the same with us. It cannot plug into the emotion. That's not denying the emotion. That's denying the emotion the ability to stress you out. Amen? Do you see the difference in that? That is huge. And you know what it does? Do you know what it does? It gives you the ability to take a step back, to take a deep breath, to be analytical, and to figure it out. Because everything is highly figure outable. Yeah? You've heard that before. Highly. Everything is. Every problem has a solution. And if we understand that, then we can get out of our way of our emotions. We can start to be more problem-centric, more solution-centric instead of problem-centric. When we focus on the problem, that's all we see. When we focus on the solution, we get creative. And that's when the stress starts to dissipate. And that's when we have better control of our lives and our responses. So that's a big deal. And I want you to write that down. Write that down. Because bad decisions are born out of stress poorly handled. Write that one down. Bad decisions are born out of stress that's been poorly handled. That's the honest to God truth. And the body is greatly influenced by stress. Everything slows down. Your decision making is jumbled. The way you feel spiritually may be confused and conflicted. The way that you feel physically is wound up like a tick. You ever heard that one before? All of us have. All of this is what stress does. It's like, it's a suffocation device. It really is, because it makes you feel like you can't catch your breath. And if anybody has ever had an anxiety attack, yes, I have. I know what that's about. It is absolutely frightening. And this is your body turning on itself because you haven't controlled that stress. We have ways of doing that. And I'm not pushing and saying, well, you didn't do it right. Not at all. I'm saying that you felt out of control, and that out of control leads to the stress, and that stress leads to anxiety when it's not brought in and corralled. So what do we do with this? What do we do with all this? Well, I'm going to give you some things that you can do. I've got 7 really good things for you. But you also have to understand that also good things such as exercise can overproduce too much stress so that you can't handle it. The right amount of exercise can get the cortisol going, yes, but also can get you to the place where you handle cortisol better. And that's critical. That's important. And that's going to make a big, big difference. So keep that in mind. That's why I started power walking, because I found myself just overly exhausted, which became too stressful, which then in turn, I was over exercising and then not handling stress well. It's hard on your body. So you have to find your sweet spot. That's the way it is. I think Sarah had to do that too. She was running and everything, and you end up getting injured as well. So these are things that we need to kind of keep in the palm of our hand and use them as we need them. So how can we deal with all of this? Well, as I said to you, food is information for your body telling you to act one way or the other. Can you imagine what inflammation is? Inflammation is nothing but stress, stress, stress. It's physical, it's mental, it's painful, and it causes all kinds of weight issues. It's all the things we don't want. Chronic stress and chronic inflammation go hand in hand. They're BFFs. We don't want that. Go away. Get out of my life. Get out of my way. We can't do that. So we've got to remember that having an anti-inflammatory diet is one of the ways that we can deal with this kind of thing, with this kind of inflammation. So food, let me just say, it's the principles of the hot melt sprint. It's food, it's hydration, it's movement, and it's sleep. All of these work to bring down those stress hormones and correct them, because that's what we're about, is correcting the hormones. When our body is successfully communicating what it needs to with different parts of the body, pain goes away, we feel better, we feel more at home in our own body suits. Isn't it amazing how much different we feel? So that's a big deal. Number 2 is self-care isn't optional. It's not. You know what self-care is? It's an acknowledgement of who you are. Remember, you're the daughter of the king. Remember, you're put here on purpose by God himself. You know, you're not just taking up space and breathing air, randomly. You're here on purpose. Therefore, you better take care of yourself. Taking care of yourself is a direct response of gratitude to the one who gave you life in the first place. Number 3 is meditate, breathe, and light a candle. Look at this. I gotta show. And it's so funny that is, when I was doing my research on it, I was laughing about it because I got this lovely candle sent to me, and it's wonderful. It has this grapefruit. I think it's grapefruit. What does it say on there? It says it's called Sacred Space, and it's coconut wax with ginger, cardamom, saffron, and lemongrass. Isn't that lovely? And it says create. So I love it. And I light it with I've got my little lighter over here. I light it. And that's when I have my meditation. And this is exactly what I have here, is that you want to meditate, breathe, and light a candle. Use a breathing app. You can put it on your phone. You can put it on your watch. You can put it on anything. And breathe. Breathing does everything. It just makes your whole body respond. Oxygen helps to remove things, by the way. And this is how we detox, is through our breath, through our sweat. And of course, we pee and poop out the rest of it. That's how we get rid of these things. And what do you think stress hormones do? I mean, that's what they are. I mean, too much of it is causing us issues. Of course, it's a problem and it's got to go. And we can get rid of it with breath work. Watch the caffeine. I was having a discussion with a friend of mine this morning, and we were talking about another person that we know who drinks like 2 pots of coffee a day and doesn't understand why they don't sleep. It's an issue. And coffee is going to stress you out and make you less able to handle a lot of stress. A couple of cups of coffee in the morning, no problem. But if you're saying, oh my gosh, I'm so exhausted, and at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you're making a pot of coffee, you know what? That's your stress hormones. You're exhausted because you got everything upside down. And you do because you're not taking care of yourself and you're over caffeinating. Can't do it. Number 5 is exercise hard for a minute. That's why we do HIIT, high intensity interval training. We exercise for a minute for 30 seconds, and then we ease off and give ourselves a minute to cool it down. On, off, on, off. Not enough to stress out the body, but enough to kick up the metabolism. That's all we need to do. Then we do some yoga that's restorative. It stretches, or some kind of stretching. I'm not wild about yoga. It's just my own personal thing. But this is all gets the endorphins going. And endorphins are neurotransmitters, and they help us feel good. And it just says, get out of here, stress. We love that. Number 6. Now, this is how you laugh, you yawn, you're mindful, and practicing gratitude. All of these help with your parasympathetic nervous system, which again helps you calm down. Take a big yawn, stretch, get some air in you, turn on some music, dance like no one's watching, or maybe somebody is, I don't know, but just do it. These things all help us to cope. These are coping mechanisms, way better than a bag of chips, right? And then number 7, I'm going to say this to you. Anyone here who's not taking their supplements daily, I'm going to come to your house, knock on your door, and slap you silly. This is how we keep our nutrients on point. On point. We have to. Because if we don't, then we start to become exhausted. When our mitochondria is exhausted, so are we, and we're more apt to have the stress responses that we don't want. Stress is going to happen. How are you going to handle it? You handle it by being mindful about the whole thing, by being proactive about your self-care, by eating the best that you can, sleeping, hydrating, doing all these things. It's going to change everything. And you're going to be calm, you're going to be centered, and you're going to be the woman you want to be. This is how we get the vibrancy going here. It is. It's how we get the vibrancy going. Is anyone wild about emotion? Yeah, nobody's wild about yoga. I know, but I know a lot of women who adore yoga. I've got a girlfriend of mine who, she's an OBGYN and she also teaches yoga. She just loves it. She also does bar and she does her Peloton and she does all the things. But yoga is a restorative practice. They call it restorative for a reason. It's because it is such a calming thing. We need calming things in our lives. And all of these things, you wrote these 7 things in and start practicing them just a little bit every day. It's not hard. And suddenly you're going to find yourself calmer, more centered, able to handle things and not be flying off the handle anymore, not shaking your fist or doing something even worse in traffic. And, actually feeling like a vibrant human being. What a concept, right? I love that idea. Thanks for joining me today. And if you found anything useful here today, would you share it? Sharing's caring. Peace be with you. I'll see you later.
Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.